What if the most daring thing a movie star could do was simply refuse to erase herself? Long before beauty rules were locked in, some of Hollywood's biggest names quietly broke them. Not with speeches, not with protests, just by showing up as they were. In the middle of glamour, lights, and studio pressure, these women made a choice that still feels bold. And once you see who did it first, you may never look at classic cinema the same way again. Number 10. Sophia Loren. She did not arrive in Hollywood to be reshaped. She arrived to be herself. When Sophia Loren stepped into international fame in the 1950s, Hollywood already had a clear idea of how a leading lady should look. Polished, controlled, carefully edited. Loren ignored all of it. She carried her Italian identity openly, from her accent to her posture, and yes, to her body hair. At public events, in photo shoots, and even in films, she appeared with visible underarm hair, completely unbothered by the reaction. This was not a mistake or a missed detail. It was a choice. Photographs from the era show her lifting her arms with confidence, smiling as cameras captured what American studios usually worked hard to hide. Instead of harming her image, it made her unforgettable. She looked real in a sea of carefully managed perfection. Hollywood executives were uneasy. They suggested changes. Quietly, politely. Loren declined. She understood something many did not. Her appeal came from authenticity. She was not trying to fit into an American mold. She was offering something different. Mediterranean confidence, warmth, presence. A woman who knew who she was. In films throughout the 1950s and 1960s, Loren's image remained consistent. She did not suddenly transform to meet studio expectations. Whether on European beaches or international sets, she appeared natural and unedited. Audiences noticed. Directors noticed even more. Many later said that her power came from the fact that she never seemed manufactured. At a time when glamour was often confused with perfection, Loren showed that charisma could come from confidence instead. She did not ask permission to exist as she was, and because of that, she stood out even more. Her career did not suffer, it soared. Awards followed, icon status followed. And quietly, noted in photographs and remembered decades later, her refusal to erase small human details became part of her legend. Sophia Loren proved that sometimes the boldest move is not changing at all, and once Hollywood accepted that, it could never quite go back. Number 9. Gina Lollobrigida. If Hollywood had rules, she treated them like suggestions. Gina Lollobrigida entered the spotlight with a presence that felt impossible to ignore. In the 1950s, she was known for her confidence, her sharp wit, and her refusal to behave like a carefully packaged star. From the very beginning, she made it clear that she would not surrender control over her image, including how her body looked. At a time when sleeveless gowns were meant to show elegance without imperfection, Lollobrigida appeared at premieres and public events with visible underarm hair. Cameras captured it again and again, not because it was hidden poorly, but because it was not hidden at all. She did not adjust her posture. She did not avoid angles. She stood exactly as she pleased. This quiet defiance unsettled American studios. They were used to control image notes, grooming lists. Lollobrigida ignored them. Noticeably, her attitude was simple. This was how women looked where she came from, and she saw no reason to pretend otherwise. In her films, especially those produced in Europe during the 1950s, scenes showed her moving freely, raising her arms, existing without cosmetic restraint. Directors did not cut away, they did not soften the image, they leaned into it. The result felt alive, honest, different from the polished fantasy Hollywood usually sold. What makes her story even more striking is that she was not trying to send a message. There was no campaign, no explanation. She simply lived according to her own comfort. And that refusal to explain made it stronger. It was not rebellion for attention. It was confidence without apology. Audiences responded. Lollobrigida became one of the most photographed women of her era. Her popularity crossed borders. Instead of fading under pressure, her image grew more powerful because it felt genuine. In an industry built on control, Gina Lollobrigida proved that freedom could be magnetic. She did not bend. Hollywood adjusted instead, and in doing so, she left behind an image that still feels fearless, even decades later. Number 8. Silvana Mangano. Before Hollywood even knew how strict it wanted to be, she showed everything they would later try to hide. Silvana Mangano did not challenge beauty rules so much as arrive before they had fully hardened into doctrine. Her breakthrough performance exposed a version of female presence that mainstream cinema would soon spend decades attempting to control. When Bitter Rice premiered in 1949, audiences were caught off guard. The shock did not come from spectacle or glamour, but from how real everything felt. Mangano worked in the rice fields on screen, her body constantly in motion, arms raised under the open sun, skin wet with sweat. Her appearance was unfiltered. Her underarm hair was clearly visible, not framed as provocation, not emphasized for effect, but simply present. It reflected the reality of working women whose bodies were tools of survival, not objects to be perfected. At the time, such details were almost never allowed to remain on screen. Cameras typically avoided them. Editors softened images. Directors carefully staged angles to preserve illusion. Bitter Rice did none of that. Rooted in Italian neorealism, the film insisted on physical truth. Mangano was not styled into distance. She was placed directly inside labor, heat, and exhaustion. Her performance was muscular, grounded, and unapologetically human. European audiences recognized themselves in what they saw. The film resonated because it felt honest. It reflected post-war reality rather than escapist fantasy. American studios, however, reacted differently. They watched closely, not because they intended to replicate it, but because they saw something they would later try to suppress. Mangano's natural appearance carried power, but it conflicted with the polished, tightly managed image Hollywood would soon enforce in the 1950s. What makes Mangano's position so significant is timing. She was not pushing back against established rules. She existed before those rules fully crystallized. As Hollywood tightened control over female bodies and presentation, her earlier work began to feel almost radical in retrospect. Something that could no longer be allowed once the system decided what femininity should look like. Her influence extended beyond a single role. Directors and filmmakers saw that authenticity could be compelling, that audiences could be drawn to reality just as strongly as fantasy. Mangano never built her career around flawlessness. She built it around presence, physical, emotional, undeniable. Years later, as beauty standards grew rigid and unforgiving, Bitter Rice remained a reminder of a brief cinematic moment when reality was trusted. Silvana Mangano did not refuse to shave as a statement. She simply arrived before anyone told her she had to. Number 7. Anna Magnani. She did not negotiate with expectations. She ignored them. That distinction defined Anna Magnani from the moment she appeared on screen. At a time when cinema worked relentlessly to smooth women into symbols, Magnani refused to be softened. She was not interested in elegance as performance. She was interested in truth. From the beginning of her career, Magnani presented herself with complete physical and emotional honesty. Her gestures were large, her emotions unfiltered, her presence unapologetically human. That honesty extended to her body. In films and public appearances alike, she appeared with visible underarm hair, something almost unthinkable for female performers of the era. It was not a statement crafted for attention. It was simply how she chose to exist. Magnani famously warned photographers not to retouch her face. Every line, every shadow, every mark mattered to her. The same rule applied to her body. She did not believe cinema should erase evidence of life. When she raised her arms during moments of passion or fury, the camera did not cut away. Directors did not ask her to change. They understood that altering her would mean losing the very force that made her extraordinary. Throughout the 1940s and 1950s, Magnani brought something that Hollywood rarely permitted women to embody: experience. She looked lived in. She carried struggle, desire, exhaustion, and resilience in her posture and movement. American studios, accustomed to polish and control, did not know what to do with her image. Yet they could not dismiss her. Her performances were too commanding. Her authenticity was too convincing. When international recognition followed, culminating in an Academy Award, it became clear that Magnani had rewritten the rules without ever asking permission. She had not adapted herself to fit cinema. Cinema had been forced to widen itself to contain her. She was never glamorous in the traditional sense. She was something far more compelling, magnetic, unavoidable. Audiences connected to her because she looked real, because she behaved like someone shaped by life rather than protected from it. Her refusal to erase herself was not quiet or symbolic. It was visible in every frame, in the way she moved, the way she held space, the way she refused to apologize for being fully present. Magnani did not play women who floated untouched through stories. She played women who fought, suffered, loved, and endured. Her body reflected that truth without compromise, and instead of limiting her legacy, that honesty made her unforgettable, an enduring reminder that realism, when carried with conviction, can be more powerful than perfection. Number 6. Brigitte Bardot. She changed the idea of beauty while refusing to clean it up. Brigitte Bardot did not enter cinema quietly. From the moment she appeared in the 1950s, she felt different from everyone else on screen. Her hair was loose, her posture relaxed, her movements untrained. She did not look polished. She looked alive. While Hollywood actresses were carefully styled down to the smallest detail, Bardot walked barefoot on beaches, wore minimal makeup, and showed up exactly as she was. That included visible body hair, something cameras were not supposed to notice. Photographers captured her raising her arms freely, laughing without concern. These images spread quickly. American producers noticed immediately. They admired her popularity, but worried about her lack of control. Quiet suggestions followed. Grooming advice. Requests framed as help. Bardot declined every time. She understood something deeply important. Her appeal did not come from perfection. It came from effortlessness. In her films during the late 1950s and early 1960s, directors did not hide these details. They leaned into them. Bardot's natural appearance became part of her screen presence. It separated her from studio-made stars and gave her an untamed quality audiences could feel. She did not perform freedom. She lived it. What makes Bardot stand out is that she never framed her choices as rebellion. She did not speak against beauty standards. She simply ignored them. That comfort translated into confidence on screen. Viewers sensed it instantly. She looked relaxed in her own skin, and that made her magnetic. Hollywood wanted the image without the freedom. Bardot refused to separate the two. If they wanted her, they had to accept everything that came with her. And because of that stance, she remained in control of her image longer than many of her peers. Her legacy is not just about style or influence. It is about scale. She proved that beauty did not need polishing to be powerful. By refusing to be edited into something smaller, Brigitte Bardot reshaped what audiences believed was possible. And long after trends changed, that honesty still feels daring. On number 5, Claudia Cardinale. When Claudia Cardinale first began attracting international attention, the reaction from studios was immediate and revealing. Executives saw undeniable star power. She was luminous on screen, emotionally open, and impossible to ignore. But alongside that admiration came a familiar impulse of the era, the urge to adjust, refine, and quietly correct anything that did not match Hollywood's preferred mold. Cardinale did not arrive in cinema as a project waiting to be completed. She arrived already herself. That, in many ways, was the problem. Her look reflected European realism rather than American polish. She carried a natural presence that resisted standardization. Early on, suggestions began to surface. They were rarely blunt. Instead, they came wrapped in politeness, recommendations for treatments, grooming, improvements, subtle hints about what might help her career progress more smoothly. She listened, and then she declined. There was no confrontation, no public stand, no manifesto, just a calm refusal to participate in erasing what made her distinct. Cardinale understood that the very qualities some executives viewed as flaws were the same qualities that gave her power on screen. She did not believe authenticity and glamour were opposites. She believed they could exist together. That belief was visible in her performances, especially in period films like The Leopard. In scenes where other productions might have edited carefully or redirected attention, the camera simply observed her as she was. Nothing was hidden. Nothing was emphasized. The audience was trusted to accept what they saw, and they did. The moment passed without comment, because it felt natural, real. Rather than becoming interchangeable with other stars of the era, Cardinale became recognizable. Directors trusted her because she felt grounded, not manufactured. Viewers remembered her because she carried a sense of truth that lingered beyond the frame. Her refusal to conform did not narrow her opportunities. It expanded them. She worked with major filmmakers, crossed industries, and built a career that moved fluidly between European cinema and Hollywood without losing its core. What Cardinale demonstrated, quietly, consistently, was that confidence did not require defiance. She did not wage war against industry standards. She simply chose not to disappear into them. In an era defined by control and uniformity, that choice was radical in its simplicity. Her legacy endures not because she fit a system, but because she resisted being reshaped by it. Claudia Cardinale proved that preserving oneself could be the most enduring form of star power. Number 4. Ingrid Bergman. Her natural look was not corrected. It was marketed. That subtle shift defined the Hollywood career of Ingrid Bergman and quietly reshaped how authenticity could function inside a tightly controlled studio system. When Bergman arrived in Hollywood in the early 1940s, she immediately stood apart, but not because she was trying to. In an era dominated by rigid beauty standards, heavy grooming, and carefully constructed glamour, she appeared refreshingly unpolished. Her face was open and expressive rather than sculpted. Her posture was relaxed, almost casual. She moved like a real person instead of a manufactured star. Studio executives noticed quickly that she did not follow the extreme grooming routines common among American actresses at the time. Normally, that difference would have triggered correction. Hairlines were adjusted, features were refined, habits were disciplined. But with Bergman, Hollywood made a rare decision. Instead of reshaping her, they reframed her. Her natural appearance was presented as part of her European identity. It became a selling point rather than a flaw. Publicity emphasized sincerity, intelligence, and emotional depth. Her look was marketed as honest, modern, and grounded, an alternative to glossy perfection. This was an unusual compromise in a system built on control. Studios prided themselves on standardization, yet Bergman's presence challenged that logic. In several of her early 1940s films, careful viewers can still notice moments where faint body hair is visible. It is never highlighted, it is never addressed, but it exists. And more importantly, no one rushes to erase it. Cameras do not cut away. Editors do not soften the image. The detail is allowed to remain part of her physical reality. What made this possible was Bergman's performance style. She carried emotional weight that made surface details feel irrelevant. She did not pose for the camera. She reacted. She listened. She allowed silence to work. Her power came from internal truth rather than visual perfection. Audiences trusted her because she felt genuine, not curated. Through Bergman's success, Hollywood learned an important lesson. Talent could outweigh rigid beauty rules. Authenticity could be profitable. Viewers were willing, eager even, to connect with someone who felt real. Bergman did not need to be reshaped to succeed. She needed to be trusted. That trust carried her through some of the most respected films of her era and established her as a symbol of emotional realism. Her legacy endures not because she conformed, but because she quietly redefined what could be accepted. Sometimes the industry does not change a person. Sometimes the person, without confrontation or spectacle, changes the industry instead. Number 3. Jeanne Moreau. French cinema did not hide reality. It celebrated it. Jeanne Moreau represented a complete departure from the traditional leading lady image at a moment when most cinema still relied on polish and control. When Jeanne Moreau appeared on screen in the late 1950s and early 1960s, she did not look styled for approval. She looked present, thoughtful, intense, fully aware of herself. She was not interested in surface rules or visual obedience. What mattered to her, and to the filmmakers who worked with her, was truth. In films like Jules and Jim, released in 1962, Moreau appeared completely natural. Her underarm hair was visible. Her legs were unedited. These were not accidents or overlooked details. They were deliberate creative choices. French cinema at the time valued realism over artificial polish, and directors believed that hiding reality weakened emotional impact. Moreau embodied that philosophy effortlessly. She did not perform authenticity. She lived it. Her body reflected freedom, not neglect. There was confidence in the way she moved through scenes, in how she occupied space, in how she raised her arms or crossed a room without self-consciousness. She did not apologize for existing comfortably in her own skin. That comfort translated directly to the screen. Her performances carried a quiet authority that did not demand attention but commanded it anyway. Moreau never explained these choices. She never defended them in interviews. She did not frame them as statements or challenges. She did not need to. Her work spoke louder than any expectation placed on her. Audiences connected with her intelligence, her emotional depth, and her refusal to simplify herself. She showed that attraction could come from complexity, presence, and honesty rather than artificial rules. What made her impact lasting was how naturally audiences accepted her once they saw her. There was no shock period, no backlash. Once viewers experienced this level of honesty, it felt correct. Anything less began to feel false. Moreau helped redefine what a woman on screen could be, not by arguing, not by announcing change, but by simply being there, fully herself, in every frame. And once that door was opened, cinema could not pretend it had never seen the truth. Number 2. Monica Vitti. In Italy, there was nothing to correct. Monica Vitti came onto the screen in the early 1960s with a presence that felt effortless and unforced. While many film industries were busy shaping actresses into ideal forms, Italian cinema allowed space for reality. Vitti fit naturally into that space. She did not arrive as a symbol or a statement. She arrived as herself, calm, observant, emotionally precise, and completely comfortable in her own body. Working closely with director Michelangelo Antonioni, Monica Vitti appeared in films that valued mood, silence, and inner tension over spectacle. In beach scenes, city streets, and quiet interiors, she moved freely. Her gestures were open, her posture relaxed. Visible body hair appeared naturally, without emphasis or concealment. It was not framed as daring. It was not framed at all. It simply existed, the same way real life does. For Italian audiences, this was normal. There was no expectation that every detail needed correction. Women on screen looked like women off screen. Vitti's appearance matched the emotional honesty of the stories being told. Her characters often felt uncertain, searching, or disconnected from the world around them. Artificial polish would have broken that illusion. Natural presence made it believable. Outside Italy, however, the reaction was different. What felt ordinary in one culture felt unexpected in another. Viewers elsewhere noticed details that Italian cinema had never thought to hide. That contrast revealed something important. Beauty standards were not universal. They were cultural, and cinema looked richer when it allowed different definitions to coexist. Vitti never commented on this. She did not explain her appearance or justify it. She focused entirely on performance. Her power came from subtlety. A pause before speaking. A glance held a moment too long. A quiet stillness that carried weight. Her natural look supported that emotional language instead of distracting from it. As her films reached international audiences, something shifted. Viewers began to accept that realism could be compelling, that honesty could be engaging. Vitti showed that cinema did not lose elegance by allowing truth. It gained depth. By refusing to correct what did not need fixing, Monica Vitti helped remind filmmakers of something simple. When stories are honest, bodies can be too. And when cinema allows that freedom, it feels closer to life. Number 1. Simone Signoret. She won the highest honors without changing a thing. Simone Signoret stood at the very top of international cinema without ever reshaping herself to fit expectations. At a time when success often required strict control over appearance, Simone Signoret followed a different path. She did not soften her image. She did not polish away human details. She believed that truth mattered more than surface rules, and her career proved she was right. Signoret emerged in French cinema during the 1940s with a presence that felt grounded and intelligent. She carried herself with calm confidence, never rushing to impress. Her performances were built on depth rather than decoration. When she appeared on screen, she looked like a real woman shaped by experience, not a carefully constructed fantasy. That included visible body hair in films and in public life. In France, this was not controversial. It was ordinary. No one questioned it. No one asked her to explain. The contrast appeared when her work reached international audiences. Hollywood noticed because it was unfamiliar. Signoret did not match the controlled image many studios preferred. Yet her talent made resistance pointless. In Room at the Top, released in 1959, she delivered a performance so powerful that it cut through every surface expectation. When she won the Academy Award, she became the first French actress to receive that honor. What made the moment significant was not just the award. It was how she earned it. She did not alter her appearance to reach that stage. She did not adjust herself for approval. She arrived exactly as she was. Her body, her voice, her presence all reflected the same philosophy. Nothing needed correction. Signoret understood that attraction could come from intelligence, confidence, and emotional honesty. Her performances carried weight because they felt lived in. She did not perform emotion for effect. She revealed it quietly, trusting the audience to follow. That trust paid off. After her success, arguments about surface rules lost their power. She had proven that authenticity could stand at the highest level of recognition. Talent outweighed polish. Confidence outweighed conformity. And once she succeeded, there was no debate left to have. Simone Signoret did not break rules loudly. She made them irrelevant. By simply being herself and excelling at her craft, she left behind a legacy that still feels bold. Not because it challenged expectations directly, but because it showed how unnecessary they were in the first place. So maybe the real surprise is not that these women refused to shave, it is that cinema once allowed them to exist at all. Before perfection became mandatory, authenticity ruled the screen. If this made you see classic Hollywood differently, share your thoughts below. Which story surprised you most? Subscribe for more forgotten truths, and remember, sometimes history feels bold, simply because we forgot how honest it once was.